with all that data being collected, when you were conceiving this, or when you were moving over from the visual processing that you had been working on and into this audio processing and talking about microphones and collecting sound in all these environments, what was the conversation around privacy, PMI, PII, PHI, and those sorts of things? How did you approach that conversation?
I would say that that's definitely been an evolution. And we've evolved very rapidly to address those concerns because fundamentally we believe that privacy is a human right. And you look at a lot of the major technology players, however they choose to interpret privacy. I'll even go back 10 years to my journey to my previous startup, the video analytics play. We built that in the age of GDPR. And we had customers in the UK and all over Europe, partners as well, where we had to very quickly find a narrative where we could stay within that data processor realm. We don't want to be a data storage or a data house for all of that that's uniquely identifiable. We want to keep everything de-identified, anonymous, and show value to say this is the aggregate demographic that happens to be on site in your mall, as one example, or this is how traffic typically flows from your existing security assets. And so when it comes down to privacy, that specific piece, we made a very early decision in building out the technology, saying privacy is a fundamental human right. Let's build everything around that. So literally what we try to do is, I'm going to say, the smart speakers of the world, the Amazon Alexas, the Google Homes, the voice detection and speech detection and classification models that exist out there and have for a very long time. So many large players specifically have focused so keenly on speech that it's done really, really well. To say that speech classification has already been mostly solved, it is fantastic for us to say, let's leverage that intelligence. Let's leverage that research. Let's leverage all the great techniques that have been used on speech classification and detection, voice detection, all of that. Let's use all of that. And as soon as it's detected, we already know it's really accurate because the industries across the world have used it for a very long time. Let's leverage that great research to extract that just so we can listen in for everything else. So that's why we process actually on the edge. It's not like all the sound is streamed, all the audio is streamed up to some cloud to figure out what to do with later, or we're even hit with a massive cloud compute expense. Or, if you think about the data in transit, the expense on the business model to just get it from the room up into the cloud, whether it's over cellular or Wi-Fi, there's a bandwidth expense to that as well. So we just said, look, let's have our models sit right there on the edge, which is why, even from a Raspberry Pi perspective, kind of where we started, we're able to leverage some off-the-shelf hardware, load our software on there, and let that run and process and do all the heavy lifting, remove that from the data in transit, remove that from the cloud, but more importantly, focus on the privacy aspect. For us, it's a sound and a space at a time because we remove all the words, speech, conversations, all of that. We just focus on the ambient background noise that happens to be a sound in a space at a time. So with that being said, we've spoken with the general counsel for the largest payer across the United States. We have spoken with the VA, which we're actually working with today, and a number of large health systems that have implemented our solution, and they're very incredibly risk averse as a vertical.
Mm-hmm.
Healthcare,
Yeah.
and specifically hospitals, because of HIPAA compliance, because of, we're based in California, so it's TCPA as well from a privacy perspective. GDPR has kind of been that global standard, but LGBT down in Brazil, every state's going to have their own version of that, every country as well. And there's probably going to be local legislature that's impacted and influenced by privacy. So we just look at it and said, let's do everything else. Every other major player, like Nuance was acquired by Microsoft a couple years ago or a year ago, like $20 billion because they do very fantastic medical transcription in those environments. Great. They do the speech and the intelligence around it. Awesome. Let's do everything else. Let's let those big players focus on that niche space, which is, it's broad, but it's very niche. It's only voice. When we're focused on more than 500 other ambient background noises and the library continues to grow as well, there's a ton of value that's underserved. So that's kind of how I would say, circumnavigate the realm of privacy. Is we don't want to get into identifying you. We want to recognize the most disruptive and frankly the opposite spectrum of that, the most peaceful sounds in that environment to improve that care delivery through patient experience all the way through patient safety and the likes.
Yeah. Is your solution able to derive meaningful data from voice and conversation while it's emitting context or phrases or keywords and those sorts of things?
I'm going to say yes, because we process on the edge, we can absolutely get into tonality, but we're not going to identify this as the patient versus the family member versus the clinician. So we
Mhm.
can have an understanding of the energy in the room or a space. You
Right.
know, is it positive? Is it negative? Is it moot? Is it somewhere in between? We can get into a few of those heuristics. That's about as deep as we want to go. We don't want to go into identifying unique individuals because then you get into PII, PHI,
Yeah.
PMI, the health and medical information that becomes identifiable and is averse to the problems we're solving on an aggregate level.